Hello, everybody, and welcome back to The Insider. Apologies for the late start this year. I promise you I've saved a good guy to start with. I'm delighted to be joined by Nigel Wilson. Hello, Nigel.
Hi, Ben. Thank you for inviting me on.
No, thank you for coming on. We've known each other quite a while, haven't we?
It's been a few years now, yes. We're both a little older and greyer than when we first.
I was about to say, I definitely had some more darker hairs when we first started. So probably worked with Nigel on and off with a couple of different businesses now for probably, well, I dare say around 12 years. So yes, it's quite some time now. How's life for you? Right, do you want to give a bit of an introduction actually, first of all, in terms of kind of where you are now and what you are doing, Nigel?
Sure. Yeah, thanks, Ben. So I'm a director of Scott Logic. We're a fast-growing technology consultancy based across the UK. So our HQ, where the business was founded, is up in Newcastle in the northeast. But we also have offices in Edinburgh, Bristol, London, and just opened an office in Leeds during lockdown. So that's been quite exciting. So my role, I look after. Yeah, well, thank you, Ben. Yeah. So I've got a long career in technology consulting. A little bit too long now, so yeah, I just really love sort of doing great work for clients, making innovative use of technology, and building great teams and seeing people sort of grow and develop. One thing about being in the industry a long time is you get to see how people's careers are developed, people that used to work for you, and that's quite an exciting thing.
Funny enough, I did a post about that the other day. It's actually something I'm quite hot on at the moment. Is how you're kind of measuring success with guys that you've hired and what they kind of go on to achieve. That's another topic altogether. But yeah, listen, Scott Logic, a great business. Obviously, I'm very biased because I work with a lot of consultancies and even started my own one because I enjoy the kind of work that consultancies do. And I think that consultancies have played a massive part in helping customers kind of get through the pandemic. So yeah, it's great to hear that you're expanding and you're opening new offices. So fantastic. I mean, from a business perspective, how is life right now? How are things? How's the kind of day-to-day challenges that you're facing, maybe?
Yeah, well, we're doing well, thanks, Ben. We're we continue to grow and win new work. I think if you'd have asked me a year ago where I thought we'd be, I might have been a little bit more pessimistic because very much I see what we do. I say to people, we're a technology business, but actually what we really are is a relationship business, right? Everything we do is about building long-term relationships with our clients, but also building really deep and meaningful relationships with our employees and our consultants, so that they're working in an environment that they want to stay working in with us long term. So, and the thing about relationships, at least for me, throughout my working career before the pandemic, was, well, you get out there, you see people, you spend quality time with them, you socialize a little bit, and you build that social capital, and that's how you build a relationship. So for me, going into pandemic a year ago, I was like, lockdown, okay, well, that's okay, because we're set up, we can do remote working, that's not a problem. We've got some great relationships with long-term clients, we've got some great people, we'll be okay with what we're doing today, but can we grow? Can we form new relationships in this environment? And there's no doubt it's harder, but we have done it. We've started open new client accounts, we've started new projects, we've done not only software development work, but some advisory work during this period. So yeah, pleasantly surprised. I should maybe be a little bit more optimistic, but yeah, things are going well as they are today.
Well, I think it's interesting. I think from my perspective, it's very similar. I've always been relationship driven. I don't kind of push myself out there realistically looking for work. And I think that we were lucky also to have some long-term relationships that kind of got us through. But I think from a technology perspective, big projects, in my experience, rarely kind of get canned. They do slow down. There is a delay, and I think then what I found was that there was a big pickup. There's a lot of companies seem to kind of re-strategize in the autumn, and there was a big pickup. There was no drop off in December for me, or like slow pickup in January. I think the market's really busy, and I think there's a few people playing catch up maybe on delivery projects, and I think that's when good delivery consultancies you can work so well in partnership can really add the value. And I think that's when you've got the experience that you have and the clients that you've worked with, I think that's when you kind of really can show your worth. What's the kind of what's the main challenges that you face then? So I know you spoke about it's been more difficult to engage with new clients. Is that been the major challenge that you faced or facing at the moment, or?
Part of the ongoing challenge of a growing business is making sure you're attracting the right people, and recruitment, which is a topic I know close to your heart, can be challenging. I think we've got a strong brand in the market. We're a very stable business and strong business. However, there's still a bit of a reluctance in the market from candidates, I think, to maybe make a move during a pandemic. And I don't know, maybe your experience in recruitment, you'll be seeing some of that reluctance with candidates.
Yeah, it's been interesting. I think that it's changed. I think that initially, when the pandemic hit, there's a couple of customers that I work with on the front line, and they carried on hiring. And I think that a lot of candidates saw those businesses as a stable place to go to. But I'll be honest with you, there's candidates that we placed, or that I've placed, or that I know have been placed, that have moved on and they've never set foot in the office. It's because the market's so busy. They've taken a position early on in the pandemic, and then things have changed as we've kind of evolved, and the market is busy. So I think there's all the kind of war on. I don't like to say war on talent. The talent. I don't like to say war. It sounds horrible, but it's so competitive to get the best guys, and I think that companies have had to evolve their offering through a pandemic. And it's a lot of what I've found, and I know that this is something we spoke about briefly before, is how companies are looking after their staff. I think that if you haven't been looked after as an engineer, say, because that's what I guess we do the most of, there's opportunities to always move on. So how have you managed to kind of look after your staff and your engineers through difficult times in the pandemic?
Yeah, I think it's certainly for our existing people, it's about continuing to nurture and build those relationships. There's the obvious hygiene things, like people have the equipment to work from home. We're doing the check-ins. We've been very conscious of the well-being of our people, so we've done some internal work around mental health and well-being, because we recognise everyone's circumstances is slightly different now. We're kind of working from home or living at work, depending on which way you look at it. People have homeschooling. They've maybe got a family that needs to sort of shield or in vulnerable groups. So I think one of the things is more than ever, and I think I'd like to think this is something we've always done, but more than ever, you've got to look at everyone as an individual. We're all we sat talking to each other in each other's homes, and we've got to kind of accommodate that. I think for our people, we've got to kind of recognise their individual needs and continue through through the support networks that we have in place to continue to work on those relationships. And then for new people, it's how do we make them feel welcome? We kind of it's not always as much fun maybe doing the socials through Zoom, but yes, gosh, we've had all sorts of things. You got the usual wine tasting, cocktail making, we've had pizza making, we've had bake-offs, we've had, you name it, we've done Amazing. It over Zoom. Yeah.
How did you get on at these? Were you more of a cocktail man than a pizza man? What's the?
I'm more of a gin man, actually. But we have had a gin night as well.
Oh, nice. Well, this is the whole point. I think it's a really good. You make a good point. I was jotting some notes down. The big thing is there's not a one size fits all. Everyone's different, isn't it? And it's understanding your staff. And I think that the way you understand your staff is by being supportive and being as close as you can be. My business partner James, I think James. He has three young girls. He's been homeschooling. It's like his scenario is completely different to me. I've actually been looking after my mum through the pandemic, so it's similar in many aspects, but just different scenarios, different times of the day, whatever it might be. And I think that's the challenge when it's really getting close to the guys that you work with and understanding their their personal setup to a degree, because of course it's easy to say somebody who's living in a flat in London, you want to make sure that they're okay, but then the different challenges for somebody who has a family that they have to homeschool and they're working crazy hours, not crazy hours, but they're working longer because they've had to move their day around. I think that's obviously the positive thing that's come out of the pandemic. I think there's a lot more flexibility, and I think a lot of people are a lot more understanding in terms of, you know, we started an office of somebody who's now working out of America, and you know, I think in the past I've always wanted to know what my guys are doing, but now I'm not calling him up at 9 o'clock in the evening when he's finishing his working day. I know and I think that's pretty relevant to a lot of different businesses, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and then, you know, as a consultancy, our clients are in the same situation, right? So there's an element of understanding and flexibility there as well, I feel, which is good. And I think, you know, it's often through these times where you really, you know, forge and deepen relationships, you know, both internally and with your clients, because you're all going through a shared experience that's actually potentially very difficult for some people.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good point. And while we're there, but how do you think consultancy is going to change? Because, you know, moving forward, and what I mean by that is I've recruited in consultancy from my very first day of recruitment, so over 15 years now, and there's always seen, when I speak to, you know, consultancy is not for everybody, which is fine. But there's always a bit of a stigma, which I think has changed over the years, about consultancy, and you could suddenly be traveling everywhere and all over the place. And I think that's maybe come from the kind of top 5. But recently, some of the consultancies I'm working with are saying, look, we are going to have a lot more flexibility because clients aren't going to be in the office themselves as much. Is that? Do you agree with that? Is that something similar that you see happening? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I think in general there will be some shift in the consulting market as a result of this. There's no doubt. I mean, it's going to impact all industries. I mean, at Scott Logic, we've always been slightly different. We've had more of that people focus, and we've never had an expectation of people living out of suitcases 5 days a week. So that's not really how our business has ever been set up. I mean, as for the industry sort of more broadly, well, yeah, I think, you know, clients recognise they don't need to spend quite as much money on offices in Canary Wharf anymore. Maybe they don't need to get all of their suppliers to go and see them and spend 5 days a week with them there. So inevitably there will be some change. And I don't know, maybe you've seen this on the recruitment side. Maybe people have been a bit more flexible around location and catchment.
Absolutely, like it took a bit of time, but the market's leveled out a little bit, because all of a sudden, so I've never until this year had fully remote requirements, and now it's just changed everything. So you've got, you know, some fantastic, we'll leads nicely into you opening your new office, to be honest with you. But you know, all of a sudden I'm speaking I can broaden my catchment net to engineers in different parts of the country who traditionally maybe haven't been, you know, the same kind of salaries as guys down in London. So what's happened is it's leveled out a little bit, to be honest with you. And yeah, like I say, you've obviously moved to a new office, and I really wanted to pick up on that because, funny enough, I was going to say I don't know anybody else who's done that in the pandemic, but I did. But I moved in my office to a slightly larger one to basically take advantage of rates, hopefully moving forward. But in terms of businesses and clients, you know, this is a new location, a new city to open up in, and I'm really interested to understand the kind of what was behind that and how that's been, you know, moving forward and opening in the pandemic.
Yeah. I know it you know, for some people, I imagine sort of expansion and opening your offices seems like an odd thing, the situation. For us, it's perfectly natural. We've had a growth model which has been, you know, sort of regionally aligned in the business for a while. So for us, we want to grow the business. Yes, we want to do more with what we already have in terms of our existing infrastructure, people and offices, but recognizing, you know, there's a talent pool here in Yorkshire that we maybe not tapping into. There's clients here, there's actually some work we're already doing here. We need to do more of that. Now, you could say, well, of course, there are no boundaries anymore. We're all sat at home on Zoom. Why don't we just hire people fully remote? And I think that's because we recognize that the future world is this hybrid workplace strategy. There is still value in face-to-face interactions. That doesn't mean you have to be living out of a suitcase on client site 5 days a week. It doesn't mean you have to be in an office 5 days a week. But it does mean you need some of that interaction. And I think people benefit from a sense of belonging and affinity to a location and a group of people that they work with on their projects and across other projects and sharing ideas. So there is something in the physical location still, which is why we were keen to put down roots and have an office in Leeds.
So was this always like a plan that you've had for a while, or is it something that's not like an opportunistic, this is a chance to maybe get a good price office? This is something you always had planned.
I didn't do it just because the rent was cheap, although
that was me. That's what I did, yeah. But you had this, for a while.
Strategically, we've always wanted to open up in more cities, and we will continue to do that, pandemic or no pandemic.
Yeah, I think that it's interesting. I think there's, I've been doing over the years a lot of work in the area, and it's. And to be fair, there's probably a few companies that need some more challenge for the technical staff, to be honest with you, because I think there's probably, you think of a handful of guys who've got some solid engineers, and but there's a lot of talent in the area, and it's actually quite it's in and around Leeds, isn't it? So it's the whole, it's quite a commutable area for people who live in and around. So I think it's there's a lot of opportunity, and I think it's exciting. And I agree. I think that there's a lot of it is that hybrid, and to be honest with you, I can speak quite candidly. When I speak to candidates, if some candidates want to purely be working remotely now, this has changed. Fine, not a problem whatsoever. You'll find the right business with the right culture, and I work with a couple of them. That's absolutely fine. But I think that companies, what I like personally, and I'm sure you're the same, is to have that level of interaction and the level of to be able to socialize and to be able to build a company culture off the back of this. And I think that there's the element of flexibility is always going to be there, and I think even in consultancy now. So no, it's a very, very exciting time. So so big plans this year, and what is there more kind of places to open on the horizon as well? Then what's the kind of?
I think there could be. I mean, there's no spoilers as to where the next one is going to be.
I feel like I'm interviewing you for like a new film, like trying to find out what happens in it. Yeah, but it, all systems go. And is it the office in the central Leeds? Is it or?
Yeah, absolutely. We've always had a sort of city centre policy. So for people coming in and transport links for the days when people do come back into the office. A high quality city centre location is always what we've been about, really. And it is very much a long term play here. It's not, as I say, it's not a tactical. Oh, there's a bit of a client there, or there's a cheap office there. Let's go. Let's pile in and do something. And it's also not about. Yeah, I mean, you're right. There are some other organisations and even competitors in the region that have some great engineers, but it's not about sort of necessarily picking off talent from elsewhere. If you look at what we've done in our other offices, we've developed deep relationships with universities. We've got graduate programs that we invest heavily in, so we have a long-term talent pipeline. The other thing is this is interesting, the more locations you have, the more opportunity there is to keep people long-term in the business. So I've already got 3 consultants wanting to relocate to the Leeds office because what's happened during the pandemic and their life situations are changing, and they're deciding they're moving up north or down south, depending on which office they're relocating from. So having those basically is more flexibility for our people when their life change and they look and get moved, they can stay with Scott Logic.
Yeah, really interesting. I remember, like I say, I remember when we've done some work in Bristol in the past, it was a similar story at the time. I think people moving out of London and down to the southwest, and yeah. But funny enough, I live in East Grinstead, so kind of like a Ashdown Forest in between London and Brighton, and but my local estate agent was telling me that there's people are moving out of London down to, we've never been so busy in East Grinstead. So I think there's a lot of people who are now looking at it. It's like it makes sense, doesn't it? Like where everyone's lifestyle has changed, work's so important to that. And I think it's working with a business like Scott Logic, who will obviously look after their staff and retain their staff, but can offer that the flexibility level as well. It sounds a really exciting year. So listen, good luck for everything. Well, have you actually? Well, we don't know when we're going to be back in offices, but you're there and it's all opened up and you can go in there and all that kind of stuff. So all systems go. Exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got some work. We're already started around planning a return to office when it's safe to do so, and get people so they can have bit more interaction with each other, not every meeting in Zoom. So yeah, it'd be quite an exciting time. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, no, good luck. Well, listen, good luck for everything. Thank you very much for coming on. Really nice to catch up.
You.
And I'm looking forward. Well, I'm looking forward to coming visiting the Leeds office. I know you're down in London a lot, but I'm sure Leeds is going to be a better location for you. And like I say, I'll do a bit up that way. So I'll look forward to coming up and taking around the new office.
Right, look forward to it, Ben.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Nigel. Have a good day.
Cheers. Thank you.
Bye bye.